It's got to be difficult to have your future as finance minister subject to questions and public scrutiny out in the open. What is that like?
Welcome back to Moose and Loose. In today's top stories, we've got Pierre Poilievre talking about how he's had to upgrade his security based on how things have gone here in Canada. There's a lot of crazy woke leftists that have him worrying about his family a bit. He talks about a bunch of other things, so we'll check that out first. And after that, we've got Chrystia Freeland getting hounded by reporters. They have the opportunity to ask her any question. They all ask the exact same thing over and over and over, like 5 times. And that's whether Justin Trudeau is going to fire her, if she's going to be kicked out. It's hilarious.
Pierre Poilievre, good morning. Thanhave for being here. There you are.
Here we are.
Okay.
I never met a mic I didn't like.
Yeah, well, we needed proof of life there.
As long as it turns on.
Have you ever met a politician who didn't like a mic was turned on?
Come to think of it.
All right. This is a serious question. Over the weekend, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. You are a controversial person when you step up to those microphones and cameras and notepads. Do you ever worry about something like this?
I do worry about my family. We do receive a lot of, some of them are threats, some of them are implied threats, and some of them are vitriol that you can tell lead to violence. And a lot of them have been targeted at my family. So we have asked for security from both the Prime Minister through the RCMP and from the House of Commons. And we received that security from both of those sources. So we're very blessed to have that.
Okay. Yeah, I could see where you'd worry about your family, but what about yourself? I mean, you've got to, at some point, coming in here is a safe way to talk to the public, going into a television studio, that sort of thing. But you're not going to be Prime Minister if you don't go out there and stand at rallies and out in public and talk to people.
I was just talking with your friend Alex Pearson, sharing a story when I was out door knocking, and I met this lady. She's from Cuba. And mid-conversation, she suddenly, out of nowhere, burst into tears. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Nothing's wrong." I said, "Well, why are you crying?" She said, "I'm so happy." "Well, what are you happy about?" She said, I come from a place where people like you never come to see people like me." She was poor, Cuban, and where she comes from, the politicians roll by in motorcades with bulletproof glass, and I'm sure they never experience any danger at all, but they don't talk to people either.
Yeah.
So here's the trade-off. We can have politicians who are behind 4 feet of glass, who roll by in motorcades, but never shake hands with a real human being, and then we won't have a democracy. So we have the trade-off, and I guess there are whack jobs out there that could do something. We take all the precautions possible, but I have to talk to people, and I'm not going to stop doing that.
All right. Well, then.
If you noticed yesterday at the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump had a lot more security. They were wrapped right around him. He was like he had an entourage with him. He's definitely upped his security. But he's still out there. He still went to the convention. He was out there. Now, granted, there's security checks and metal detectors to get into that building, etc. But he is not back down from the people. So Pierre Poilievre is no different. He's not going to back down. He's going to go out in public and meet the people and do this the right way.
Let's talk about some of the issues. I know lately you have been pretty strong on what people call safe injection sites. In fact, I saw a video of you even taking on the term.
This is what the radical NDP liberal left does. They invent language that says the opposite of what it means. First of all, we all agree it's not safe to inject heroin.
Yeah.
Second of all, we all know that these drug dens bring danger to people who are not even involved in them. We saw a beautiful mother in Toronto struck with a stray bullet that emanated from one of these sites. So they're not safe. They're very dangerous. And it's like they call it safe supply. They're using your tax dollars to give out heroin-grade opioids. It's not safe. We now know for a fact it's being diverted to kids who previously weren't using any drugs at all. We know you can overdose and die on it, and we know that it's a gateway to harder fentanyl. So it's unsafe supply. They call it harm reduction. No, it's harm production. And it's created an industry, a money-grabbing industry of activists, academics, or I call them hackademics, bureaucrats, drug companies who are making a fortune by perpetuating the misery. No wonder 40,000 people have died. No wonder we have the worst overdose rate, the second worst overdose rate out of the 15 countries that the Commonwealth Fund investigated. And it's only getting worse. My common sense plan is to stop the drug dens, end the tax-funded distribution of narcotics, ban hard drugs, and put the resources into recovery and treatment to bring our loved ones home drug-free.
On that note, I just want to touch on this real quick. BC rejects Bonnie Henry's report of backing non-prescribed alternatives to street drugs. So Bonnie Henry was trying to make it so they could broaden the safe supply to include non-prescription drugs. Her report's recommendation that BC should consider allowing access to alternatives to unregulated street drugs without a prescription was felt much more widely. It was swiftly rejected by the government. Bonnie Henry is an absolute disaster. And Pierre Poilievre is just calling it out too. This is just doubling down on stupid policies.
And you partly answered the obvious follow-up question is, and I'm with you, I think that we're perpetuating the problem as opposed to doing something about it. Drug addiction is a terrible thing for people to be caught up in. You want them to be able to achieve sobriety and live a good life. But how would you then, as Prime Minister, prosecute that? Because the healthcare aspect of it is more of a provincial responsibility. And there's three problems. There's that. It's phenomenally expensive for treatment, and you can't force people into it.
A lot of good questions there. The federal government is already funding the drug dens, the distribution of opioids like hydromorphone, countless activists, academics, lobbyists, drug companies. They're getting all of these federal grants. So I'm going to just eliminate all that, and I'm going to put it directly into funding for treatment centers that have shown that they can break the addictions. And I'm going to fund it based on results. We're going to go to a results-based funding approach where we pay these organizations that get people off drugs. They will get a stream of funds for every month they keep someone drug-free by giving them detox, counseling, physical exercise, job preparation, transitional housing, and in certain cases, sweat lodges for First Nations. These things, they already exist. They're great organizations like the Oak Foundation in Winnipeg does this, Harvest House in Ottawa. We need to expand those, and that's how we're going to bring our loved ones home drug-free.
All right. By the way, this is an appropriate day to ask you because I checked my bank account this morning. I got a couple $100 from Justin Trudeau. And then he will say, well, here's the problem. Pierre Poilievre's going to take that away. That's my carbon rebate. You're going to take that away from me.
He already took it away from you. He took it away from you when you were gassing up your car, when you were buying your groceries with food that was taxed when the farmer used fuel to produce it, when the trucker used fuel to ship it. He took it away from you when he prevented you from getting that raise you didn't know you might have got, but for the fact that Bell is paying a carbon tax to heat the place. The parliamentary budget officer has demonstrated that 60% of families will pay more in carbon taxes than they get back in rebates. So it's a fraud. And Trudeau wants to quadruple this tax to 61 cents a liter. Can you imagine how many jobs we're going to lose when factories are paying more for this tax? How many truckers are going to lose their jobs? And then they're not going to eat at local restaurants, so waitresses are going to lose their jobs. This is a radical, wacko scheme, and I am the only one who will put an end to it. I will axe the tax to bring home lower prices.
Well,
that's an interesting point there that we don't really talk about. But yeah, like if big businesses, say, like you said, Bell or any other big business, has to pay more carbon taxes on everything, whether it's the heating of the building, the lights, the operations, etc. If it's a transport company, then obviously it's all on the gas and all that stuff. Then they're not going to give out more raises. They're going to hire less people. They're probably going to lay off more people. It just affects the entire network of jobs. It affects the entire economy Like, this tax is the biggest disease in Canada ever.
You'll have no choice. People always say, politicians say what you want to hear. You've been so emphatic on that particular one that probably if you show up on a Wednesday, that thing better be gone by Thursday.
It's going to be fast. I will axe the tax. Lightning speed.
Something that has just been in the news recently is, and this has gone through not just Liberal but Conservative governments as well in Canada, where we're accused as a nation of not pulling our weight on defense, not coming up with the 2% of our GDP for defense spending. Is that a reasonable number, and would you change that?
I want to start by talking about how I'm going to run the government. One, I'm not going to judge my success on a policy based on how expensive I can be on that policy. I don't care how worthy the objective is, whether it's curing cancer or rebuilding the military. We shouldn't judge our success based on how big the budget is. We should judge it based on what we do with the money, what we achieve with the money. So, for example, we had probably the biggest pound-for-pound contribution to destroying the Taliban terrorists after they attacked the Twin Towers on 9/11, but we didn't hit 2% at the time. How did we have such a great contribution? We spent our money wisely. When we bought heavy aircraft and helicopters, we bought it off the shelf at the lowest price, always on time, on budget. So our troops got the best equipment at the best price. Now, Trudeau, for example, canceled F-35s and then changed his mind 7 years later and bought them. Well, that cost us billions of dollars. Well, that contributed towards our 2%. So if he just botched it another 10 times and blew, another $40 billion, he could hit the 2%. It would do absolutely nothing for anybody's security. All this to say, we shouldn't judge the success of our military by how much money we push out, but rather by what we do with it. There will be more funding for the military when I'm Prime Minister. I'm going to cut foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies. I'm going to end the botched procurements. I'm going to cut back office bureaucracy. I'm going to put all of that into the front lines. And I believe when the Americans see how much stronger we are in fighting to defend North American security, the political pressure at NATO and elsewhere will lift, as it did under the previous Conservative government.
Pierre Poilievre, thanks for being here. We've got a long way to go before an election, I'm sure. Thanks for being here.
Too long, unfortunately. The sooner the better.
Thanks very much.
Bring it home.
That is a well-spoken man. Smart. I mean, that's what we need. We don't need to waste our money. It's best value for your money. It's like a mom or anyone at home who's really scrounging and really using dollars wisely. Instead of buying going and buy a ready-made pizza, you buy the ingredients and you can make 4 pizzas for the same price. It's the exact same thing. There's no reason why we can't do this with the military as well. Definitely some interesting tidbits in this interview here, especially him talking about the threats made against his family and all of that. We got to keep Pierre Poilievre safe. If Trudeau can have 77 RCMP, Pierre Poilievre can have just as many as well. I'm sure he doesn't get that many, but moving on, let's check out this absolute train wreck of Chrystia Freeland getting just destroyed, and this is funny.
Autre question. First question, please.
This is so awkward.
Hi,
what is going on here?
Deputy Prime Minister. My name is Amanda Lena Laterio. I'm with Global News. The Prime Minister says he's been trying to recruit for years Mark Carney to run for the Liberals. Have you also spoken with Mr. Carney to encourage him to run for the party, and why or why not?
I actually have known Mark for a very long time. Both of us are from Northern Alberta. And I think Mark is a great Canadian. I am really glad that he has come out as a Liberal. And I'm grateful for any support he can offer our party, our government, and our country.
So have you spoken with him?
I speak with Mark often.
About that?
I speak with him often. He's actually my son's godfather.
Okay. And my follow-up? There have been multiple.
I thought that was a follow-up, but go ahead.
Just getting clarity. There have been multiple reports that the Prime Minister's office is questioning your abilities as Finance Minister. Has Mr. Trudeau raised concerns about your performance with you, and perhaps you can expand?
The Prime Minister's views are really something you should ask the Prime Minister about. But I am really happy to speak for myself and offer my perspective. And my perspective is that Canada is the best country in the world, and Canadians are amazing. And it is a huge privilege for me to serve Canada and Canadians as your finance minister and as your deputy prime minister.
Bootlicker. That's just some A-plus bootlicking there. So just a note there on Mark Carney. So it's really interesting. After that poll came out, I don't know if you guys saw the last video, but basically 7% of Canadians can recognize Mark Carney, where 98% can recognize Justin Trudeau. So that really goes to show Mark Carney is not, well, maybe in the political sphere, he's some superstar or whatever, you know, Bank of England, Bank of Canada, whatever. In the general spectrum, Canadians don't know who the heck the guy is at all. If you just do a quick Google search, all you get is a bunch of scandals. So I don't know if he's really a shoe-in or not. They'd be better off to find some liberal celebrity like Justin Trudeau, because Mark Carney, that's going to be a hard sell. We'll see, though. I should just note, too, her body language when she talked about Mark Carney, it was very relaxed. She looked like a normal human being. And as soon as they asked the second question, and as you'll see with the further asking of, because they just asked once about her stepping down or getting fired or whatever, as they keep asking her, you'll see the twitchy Freeland come out. It really tells a lot, as she basically doesn't get any questions she likes, except for that Mark Carney one.
Next question.
Hi there, Mark Rendell with the Globe and Mail. Thanks for taking the question. So following up on the last line of questions, you were with the Prime Minister at events over the weekend. Did you receive assurances from him that you will be staying on as Finance Minister?
Again, the Prime Minister is a very eloquent man and leader, and it's for the Prime Minister to speak for himself. It is true that I had a long conversation with the Prime Minister on Friday. I spent a lot of Saturday with him in Mississauga and Brampton, and I was in Ottawa yesterday at a meeting with him. And I will offer my own perspective. So as I said a minute ago, it really, Canada is so amazing. And I know that Canada and Canadians, we face some big challenges, and we have some amazing opportunities. And I just consider it a real privilege every day to do my best to serve Canada and Canadians, to work on projects like this one.
I have no idea what's going on here. So she's giving these answers where she's basically like bootlicking Canada, like, oh, I love Canadians, Canada's so great. Like, is she getting fired and she's trying to soften the blow so she doesn't get heckled into oblivion when she steps out to the street and she's no longer a parliamentarian? Like, I can't figure what's going on here. She seems overly smile, but it's clearly quite fake, because whenever they ask her these questions, it wipes right off. It's just a big fake smile. And she looks, I don't know, something is weird. Like, something is very funny going on here.
So was that a yes or no as to whether you had received assurances that you will be continuing as Finance Minister?
Again, the Prime Minister is a very eloquent guy, and he is really capable of speaking for himself. I can speak for myself too, though. So let me just add, to serve as minister in a cabinet, you do need the support and confidence of the Prime Minister. That is especially true for the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. Today is a nice day to be Finance Minister because I'm saying yes to an amazing project. But if you're Finance Minister, as my colleagues here know all too well, you have to say no a lot of the time too. That's how we keep our AAA credit rating.
And
hang on, let me just finish my answer. And so in order to do my job effectively, in order to serve the amazing people who are here today and the people across the country, I do have to feel that I have that confidence. And so what I will say to everyone here, speaking for myself, is I do have the confidence that I need to do my job effectively.
So she says she has the confidence. She's saying that she's not necessarily saying Trudeau has, I don't know, is this some weird deflection thing? Is this a strategy to try to get us off of Trudeau and focusing on her being terrible? They're both terrible, but I don't know if this is some tactic and they're just working out in the back end. Because really, they're arm in arm in this with all the money they're sending out to Ukraine and all these other countries and Iraq and wherever. You know, all that money that Pierre Poilievre is going to stop and keep it here in Canada and focus on Canadians with. All that money we can't audit and know where it's going and what it's doing and what bank accounts it's going to. So really, is this some weird deflection tactic? This is very bizarre.
Next question, please.
One thing I will note here, her hands. So she's very tensed. That's what I mean. Look at it. She's squeezing that tight. She's praying she doesn't get asked this question again. You can see it in her face too.
I question for the Deputy Prime Minister, Adrian Gobriel, CTV National News.
Just look at those hands.
Minister Freeland, we've been trying to reach out to you for some time to speak with you about an investigation that we're working on. It looks into money service businesses, Canadian-based MSBs that run trading and currency exchange apps and services. Some of these MSBs are being run by international criminals who are registering their businesses here in Canada, registering with FinTrack, and using shared office spaces as their address. They're using Canada to legitimize their Ponzi schemes. One business, actually multiple businesses, have set up their office address right here in Markham, Ontario. They're marketed their trading app to investors in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and then allegedly vanished with upwards of $1 billion. Critics say that so far the measures taken by the Department of Finance have done little to crack down on MSBs. How do you believe these criminal MSB corporations who are stealing hundreds of millions of dollars reflect on our country?
So thank you for the question. And what you report and allege in your question is very, very serious. I take money laundering in Canada extremely seriously. And in fact, our government and I as finance minister have introduced tougher anti-money laundering legislation than any government in Canadian history, including further empowering FinTrack. But I think your question is an important one. I think we do have more work to do here in Canada.
Money laundering has run rampant since the Liberals have gone in. We have people coming over from Hong Kong, laundering all their street candy, making tons of money out of it, sending the money back to China, building up their business even more, then flushing it again through Canada, making tons more money. And it turns out they started dumping money into the real estate industry. Then they started creating their own real estate development companies because the real estate is so lucrative. That's how bad the money laundering is in this country, let alone what the reporter here was from Global or whatever was saying, where they're setting up these shell companies or whatever and then trading out of Sri Lanka, like bringing in $1 billion and stealing it. Like, it's just... This country's become a joke with all this stuff.
Both in terms of ensuring that we have the tools we need to crack down on fraud and money laundering, and also that law enforcement agencies across the country are doing their job.
And just to follow up to a question from my colleagues and one for my colleagues in Ottawa, it's got to be difficult to have your future as finance minister subject to questions and public scrutiny out in the open. What is that like for you?
Here we go.
Oh, you know, I spend very little time feeling sorry for myself. I am Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. I grew up on a farm. I know that there are millions and millions and millions of Canadians who work much harder than any of the dignitaries standing behind this podium, and who do it for less money and less acclaim. Those are the Canadians I think about every single day, and I am really just focused on serving those Canadians to the best of my ability.
What is this bootlicking? This is so bizarre. Is this their new strategy? It's just bootlicking? And they all ready with their seal applause. What is this?
Next question.
Hi, Lisa Robertson from TVO with the agenda, Steve Paikin. We are in a position right now where we're continuing to expand on oil and gas. And I'm wondering why we spend all of this wonderful energy to build initiatives like this, and we continue to expand when we probably know that we have enough fossil fuels to get us through the transition. Why are we not putting our energy towards more initiatives like this?
First, just to clarify this press conference here, it's Chrystia Freeland on low carbon energy networks. And just going one step further, right on the Government of Canada website here, it says they basically expand the world's largest wastewater energy transfer facility, so more residents and businesses can benefit from affordable low-carbon energy. The federal government announced today additional investment of $25 million in Markham. This will reduce emissions by 700,000 tons, basically delivering a reliable, cost-efficient heating and cooling to over 15 million square feet across 240 buildings. So that's what they're talking about here.
Canadians can and should be extremely proud of the work that we are doing as a country to reduce our emissions. And that work, it truly is a team effort. I mean, what we're seeing today is such a beautiful example of it, right? Like, you could not get more local and more grassroots than Markham District Energy, people who love this community, who live in this community, who, as we heard from our American neighbor, have been planting seeds for this work for 25 years and just keep going. And it is like such a privilege for me that our government is able to put some tools in place to support them in that work. And we are here in Markham, we're seeing one great example. But there are projects like this going on across the country. Canadians are smart, they are innovative, they are working really, really hard on climate action and to bring our emissions down. That is the story across Canada. That is something I am really excited that our government is a part of.
Okay, our next question is the opposition
That was just a whole bunch of word salad.
has made one of its top talking points Axe the Tax, aimed at stopping your government's key green initiative, the carbon tax. Would supporting more projects such as this be a better, less polarizing way to get Canada on a greener path?
Good question.
Thank you for the question. And our answer is we need to do both. The price on pollution actually puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Ontario families. It is revenue neutral. At the same time, I absolutely agree. Our government needs to be energetically supporting projects like this one here at Markham District Energy that are bringing our emissions down.
There's no way it can be revenue neutral when you're spending $200 million just to administer the tax. Like, it makes no sense.
And again, Canadians should be proud of the fact that Canada today has one of the most ambitious national set of tools to support efforts to bring emissions down, probably one of the most ambitious in the world, maybe the most ambitious in the world. And let me just enumerate them, okay? We have the Canada Growth Fund. That is capitalized at $15 billion. It supported the work here. We only set it up last spring, in the spring of 2023. It is up and running and has invested $2 billion. And the Canada Growth Fund knows that if they finish investing their $15 billion and they have more great projects, they will get more support from the federal government, because that is money that comes back to the government. So we have the Canada Growth Fund. We have the Canada Infrastructure Bank, another federal institution that our government put in place to support projects precisely like this one that decarbonize our economy and our communities.
Let's not forget about the Asian Infrastructure Bank. Remember that one where the Liberals gave millions of dollars? According to this, it says $995 million by today's exchange rate is $1.35 billion US. And we're not getting anything for this. Apparently, because the Chinese Communist Party's taking control of it. They spend money on the stupidest things. I wonder if they're friends with those people. I wonder if they get some of that kickback after they're out of office. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows?
This one that decarbonize our economy and our communities. And then we have our $93 billion suite of projects, including, and you know, this sort of the spearhead tools to decarbonize are the investment tax credits. Last month was a very big month for Canada because those tax credits were passed into law. And we are seeing them drive major investments into Canada, major decarbonization, like the investment in Dow, like the Honda investment, like the Strathcona CCUS investment. And I just heard from Bruce, he's interested in understanding whether Markham District Energy qualifies for the investment tax credits. And we're happy to talk to you guys about that too.
Stop giving away billions of our dollars to these single individual companies. It's just ridiculous. Like 12 million to Loblaws, 5 billion to Honda. It doesn't matter if it's millions or billions. These big companies can make their own money. This is taking our money and wasting it in the worst places possible. If they actually just made things cheap, Canadians could build businesses. There's a guy locally here who wants to rent a space out and start a business, but it's just too expensive. People are leaving. People are shutting down. They're running the doctors out of town. They're running the businesses. They're running the tech people down to America. The welders, the butchers, the bakers, the candlesticks makers. They're all going to America because things suck so bad in this country. And then all they do is double down on this garbage, this vitriol filth about carbon tax and green and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, China's making gangbusters cash, and their economy is booming, and their people are getting rich, and we're getting absolutely screwed with the highest taxes in North America and some of the highest taxes in the world. This press conference was very weird, and it's very clear that Trudeau had a conversation with her. I don't know if it's a strategy to deflect the heat off of him, and they're trying to keep this charade going on as long as possible. Or is she actually getting tossed out? Maybe. I mean, King Narcissist, Captain Schmuck there, Trudeau, like, it's all about him. It's the Trudeau show. He's going to stick it for as long as he can because he loves the power. He loves the money. Follow me, security. Like, he just loves the security following him and just being at, you know, the top dog in town. That's all he cares about. He doesn't actually care about making this country, you know, a great country to be in. Jumping over to my group here, let's see what memes we've got today. Make Justin useful again. After I'm elected, I will become a vegetarian. Wanted for treason. Jean-Yves Duclos by reason of involvement in signing the secret WF charter and a role in the attempted cover-up of the well-known ArriveCan scandal that cost Canadians millions. Wanted for treason, Karina Gould, by reason of continuing to support Justin Trudeau's initiatives and insisting $100 million was required to fight the pandemic in addition to the resources that were already in place. Trudeau's new toilet paid for by the Canadian taxpayer. A rare look on how Liberals find their logic. Just once in my life, I'd like to see a liar's pants catch on fire. That's where we're going to wrap up this episode. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought about Pierre Poilievre needing more security. I say give him the security he needs. Take some of Trudeau's security. And what do you think's going on with Chrystia Freeland here? I mean, she obviously got a talking to. Is this a strategy? Is this some sort of plan? Is it just a Trudeau show and she might just be kicked to the curb? Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching the end of the video here. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, ring the notification bell to be notified of all my videos. Thanks to all the channel members. We're going to keep fighting for freedom. I'll see you guys in the next one.